Hovering over the girl, her delicate frame barely draped with a towel, he found himself utterly captivated. His eyes couldn't tear away from her. How on earth did she end up in such an alluring pose? The thought darted through his mind like a spark. A sudden rustle broke the trance. He glanced over his shoulder, catching a shadow in the corner of his vision. It was her husband. Before he could react, a fist connected squarely with his face. Everything went black. This story actually began a few days prior to that chaotic moment, back when Aaron had just moved into his new apartment. He relished the quiet of the sparsely populated building, savoring the prospect of uninterrupted peace for months to come. That tranquility, however, was short-lived. A few days later, he spotted a young couple unloading belongings into his shared entrance. The man, with a hurried gait, would bolt off to the bus stop every morning and return late at night, dragging his weary steps. The girl, meanwhile, often flitted by with grocery bags in hand. One evening, Aaron decided to step out for some air. His work had hit a frustrating slump, and his mind craved a little oxygen, maybe even a cigarette to clear the cobwebs. After a short stroll around the block, he was making his way back when he saw her. She was standing near the entrance, fussing with 3 large boxes stacked in front of her. "Good evening," Aaron greeted casually. "Need a hand with those?" "Oh, if it's no trouble," she replied, a trace of exasperation in her voice. "The courier just dumped them here and took off. It's weird, honestly." Aaron eyed the boxes, sizing them up. They've got to be heavy, he thought. "Don't worry," she reassured him, catching his hesitation. "It's just yarn, knitting supplies." Ever the gentleman, Aaron hefted the boxes and carried them up to the 2nd floor without a hitch. At the door, introductions were made, and the conversation grew unexpectedly warm and pleasant. "Thank you so much," she said with genuine gratitude. "No problem," Aaron replied, brushing off her thanks with a smile. "Maybe you can knit me a beret to show your appreciation," he teased. "Get in line," she laughed. "I've got orders piled up already. Fall's around the corner. Scarves and cardigans are all the rage. I didn't stock up on all this yarn for nothing." "Ah, so you're in high demand," he said, grinning. "But I'm not letting you go just yet," she added with a mischievous glint in her eye. "How about you try my cookies real quick and tell me what you think?" Before he could politely decline, she tugged him inside by the hand. Moments later, she set a steaming cup of tea and a plate of cookies in front of him. "Help yourself," she insisted, sitting across from him. "And while you're at it, tell me what's happening in the world." "What do you mean?" he asked, puzzled. "Well, I'm always stuck at home with my knitting needles, churning out custom orders. I barely step outside except to grab groceries. So, I'm out of the loop, fill me in." Aaron chuckled. "You've come to the right person. I'm a bit of a recluse myself. I'm a programmer. I work from home all day." "Well, in this house, there's no room for shyness," she declared, motioning for him to dig in. Aaron reached for a cookie, smiling. "Won't your husband mind if I make myself comfortable?" he quipped playfully. "Never mind him," she waved dismissively. "Now tell me, is the dough too sweet?" He took a bite, savoring the warm, buttery flavor. "Nope, it's perfect," he said after a moment. "Then you'd better finish them all," she said with a wink. "Shouldn't you save some for your husband?" Aaron asked, his curiosity piqued for the 2nd time. "Oh, he's had more than enough." "Don't worry about him," she replied with a wave of her hand. "So, tell me," she began, her tone shifting, "how long have you lived here? Do you know anyone in the building? What do you do in the evenings?" Aaron answered honestly, admitting he hadn't spoken to anyone in the 2 months since moving in. "So, no special someone you spend your weekends with?" she pressed, her voice teasing. He shrugged. "Not really. I just catch up on sleep, clean up, and watch movies." "Pretty dull." "Huh." Her eyes lit up. "Oh, I'd love to watch a good movie," she said with a wistful smile. "And your husband doesn't take you to the movies?" Aaron asked, mentioning the man for the 3rd time. She smirked. "Movies aren't just about the theatre. It's more of a state of mind, don't you think?" "Well," she added, her tone warm and inviting, "since you and I are both homebodies, feel free to stop by any time." Something about her words lingered with Aaron, solidifying his suspicion that there was something odd about this couple. After that intriguing encounter, Aaron and Olivia ran into each other a handful of times, either in the courtyard or by the entrance. Each time, her gaze held a strange intensity that unsettled him. This is also strange, Aaron thought one evening. What if he's not her husband at all? Maybe he's her brother. I've never seen them hold hands or act like a couple, and taking your brother's arm isn't unusual. The idea struck him like lightning. If she's single, there's no harm in stopping by for coffee, or an excuse like borrowing a lighter. The very next morning, he caught a glimpse of Olivia's back as she entered her apartment. Without hesitating, he bounded down the stairs and rang her doorbell. "Good morning," she greeted him, her smile broad and welcoming. "Come in." "You mentioned," Aaron began, but she interrupted him quickly. She corrected playfully, "you said I could stop by any time, and I figured now's as good a time as any." Stepping into her kitchen, Aaron's eyes couldn't help but linger on her. She was dressed in snug pajamas that accentuated her figure, and it didn't take much imagination to guess she wasn't wearing much underneath. The casualness of her attire struck him as deliberate, or so he hoped. They sat down over coffee, chatting easily. As the conversation meandered, Aaron decided to take a risk. "So, do you have a brother?" he asked, trying to sound nonchalant. Her laughter came swiftly. "A brother? No brothers here." That settled it. Her husband wasn't a brother, meaning he was, in fact, her husband. The realization hit Aaron hard, leaving him wondering what exactly he'd gotten himself into. Naturally, the revelation that Olivia was living with someone dampened Aaron's spirits, but not enough to make him stop. A series of coffee visits had drawn them closer, and Aaron felt they'd already crossed the threshold of casual acquaintances. To him, it was time to push the relationship to the next level. Yes, she's married, or at least living with a guy, but think about it, he rationalized. She dresses like this in front of me, never brings him up, and always has that smile. How could I pass this up? Maybe they're on the brink of divorce, or he's got someone on the side. Heck, maybe she's got nowhere else to go. In his mind, he spun scenarios to justify what he wanted, and before long, the opportunity he'd been waiting for arrived. It was Friday, the end of a draining work week, and Aaron had no energy left for coding or deadlines. He decided to recharge with a cup of coffee and some time in the company of his captivating neighbor. With this plan in mind, he headed to Olivia's apartment and rang the doorbell. For a while, there was no response, and he was about to leave when he heard the lock click. The door opened, and there she stood, wrapped in nothing but a towel. "Come in," she said, motioning toward the kitchen. "There are some fresh apples on the counter. I'll be right out." She disappeared into the bathroom, leaving Aaron standing in the doorway, momentarily stunned. He had barely stepped inside and closed the door when a loud crash echoed from the bathroom, followed by a scream and the unmistakable sound of something, or someone, hitting the floor. His pulse quickened as he rushed toward the noise. What he saw froze him in his tracks. Olivia was sprawled on the bathroom floor, utterly still. "Olivia! Olivia!" Aaron called, panic seeping into his voice. He crouched beside her, ready to shake her awake, when his brain caught up with his eyes. The towel that had been wrapped around her was now lying on the floor, leaving her completely uncovered. I must be getting old, Aaron thought wryly, his mind scrambling to focus. He reached for the towel to cover her, but his hands hesitated, hovering mid-air. His gaze lingered, trying to take in every detail of the scene before him. "She's breathtaking," he murmured to himself. "Even unconscious, she's managed to look irresistible. That kind of beauty has to be a gift from above." For a few seconds that felt like an eternity, his fingers fumbled clumsily with the edges of the towel, his conscience battling against the primal temptation to simply keep staring. Finally, the better angels of his nature won out, and he draped the towel over her. Aaron snapped into action, gently patting her cheeks to rouse her. When that failed, he moved to turn on the faucet, hoping some cold water might do the trick. As he shifted to stand, a sound behind him made him pause. He twisted slightly, just in time to catch a blur of movement. Then bam! A fist connected with his face, sending a shockwave through his skull. The world went dark. As he collapsed to the floor, his hands flailed, searching for anything to stop his fall. They grasped uselessly at the shelves, but his efforts were in vain. When Aaron regained consciousness, the pain in his head was sharp and unrelenting. A dull ache pulsed for the lump on his forehead, and when he gingerly touched his face, he realized a fresh bruise had bloomed beneath his eye. "This day just keeps getting better," he thought bitterly, wincing as the events leading up to this moment began to replay in his mind. Thankfully, remote work allowed Aaron the luxury of sitting at his computer with a black eye. And if we're being honest, he could have done so stark naked too, but that's beside the point. "Do you think I had time to think? Or to ask questions? And that fast?" said the man, whom Aaron now recognized as his neighbor, Alex. "I forgot my folder with the documents and came back in a rush. Then I find the door wide open. I run in, and what do I see? My naked wife on the floor and some guy standing over her. And it's all Olivia, Olivia." Alex mimicked Aaron's frantic calls. "Tell me, in that moment, do you think I had the chance, the desire, or even the first instinct to figure it out? No. I swung, and then I started thinking." By now, Aaron realized the immediate danger had passed. He got up slowly, glancing around. Olivia was sitting in the kitchen, fully dressed, holding a champagne bottle against the back of her head. She twisted it occasionally, searching for a cooler spot. Wordlessly, Olivia handed Aaron another bottle, this one filled with wine. "Here," she said. "Put it on." Grateful, Aaron pressed the chilled glass to his throbbing forehead. The coolness provided a sliver of relief from the sharp ache radiating from the impact. I'm sorry," he managed, breaking the silence. Alex waved it off. "Forget it. She gets bored on her own. When you show up, she's got someone to talk to. If she doesn't get her fill of conversation during the day, I don't even want to think about what I'll face in the evening." Aaron gave a small, awkward bow and made his way to the door. It wasn't until he was halfway down the hallway that he realized he was still holding the wine bottle. Embarrassed, he doubled back, set it by the door, and made a swift exit. A few weeks later, Aaron began dating a beautiful and, thankfully, completely unattached girl. As their relationship blossomed, the couple inevitably crossed paths with Olivia and Alex. To everyone's delight, the two pairs hit it off, often enjoying long, lively evenings together. Alex, ever the storyteller, relished recounting the tale of how he and Aaron first met. And while Olivia would smile knowingly, Aaron could only rub his forehead with a sheepish grin. Let's just say, Alex liked to quip, "It was a meeting neither of us will forget."